What's up, MMORPG rockers? Yeah. So, this is something I haven't talked about. I mean, I've talked about video games, but my love for... Shut the fuck up, truck. My love for MMORPGs. I grew up with Star Wars Galaxies, EVE Online, and of course, World of Warcraft. The fuck is your problem, truck? Shut the fuck up. God damn, I hate new trucks. In any case, so, why am I talking about MMOs at this point in time? Well, like I said, they've been a part of my life forever. It feels like at this point. Like, I still play MMOs to this day. And I was bombarded on YouTube with Ascension Warcraft, which apparently, by its advertisement, is a classless WoW game that really gives you some of the freedoms that have never been imagined by Blizzard Entertainment and, of course, the World of Warcraft world. And more so, it intrigued me enough to give it a try. And, of course, the website, I wanted to be sure I wasn't getting into some crazy, like, illegal, like, this is some copyright shit, and whatever have you. Apparently, Ascension Warcraft has good graces with Blizzard and all that. It's a completely legal system, and I'm sure it can attest to that because it's in Season 9. Alright, you don't get to Season 9 in an MMO without having Big Daddy watching you. Alright? So, I think the thing I want to talk about, I guess, is, do I want to start with the Warcraft history, or do I want to talk about Ascension? Let's talk about Ascension, because this is what brought me back, right, into possibly a World of Warcraft world, although I've attempted this many times. So what drew me to Ascension was this classless system, where essentially you have at your fingertips every single ability and spell and whatever have you that ever existed in World of Warcraft, which is phenomenal. And you just need one character to do it, which is huge. That's awesome. And as far as the servers are concerned, the official, I guess their official servers go to Burning Crusade, and then they have like a Wrath of the Lich King dedicated server. I am on Area 52, which is the main server, which only goes to Burning Crusade, which is perfectly fine with me, right? Good stuff. Entering Ascension Warcraft, you know, all of your races, you have all of your races available. You click on your race, you customize your character, you name them, and then you don't choose a class. You just get thrown into the game. You get your beginning cinematic like we did way back in the day, which is like the Blood Elf capital of Silvermoon. Ha 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 ha, blah 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 blah. You get a little bit of that nostalgia run there with that, and then you essentially have this whole new system that I will have to say it's a little difficult to understand, because this is stuff that's never existed before. It's not like you came from World of Warcraft and this is something that's a part of World of Warcraft and it's an Ascension WoW. No, that's not how that works. It's completely new writing, completely new game, completely new everything. And so it does take a little bit of reading, understanding, maybe a few YouTube videos to show you what the fuck you're supposed to be doing. There's even, at this point in time, since I've been playing for about a week now, that I still don't absolutely comprehend, but it's not hindered my experience. And playing this game has really gave me a breath of fresh air for Warcraft. I can play the story if I want to, but that's not really how this game is set up. It's most certainly set up as a dungeon raiding grind fest. I mean, it tosses you into heroics very early on, and PvP is actually fun. I know, right? PvP in a Warcraft game, fun? Crazy. Absolutely crazy. But the leveling is much faster. You gain all of your currencies much quicker than normal. I wouldn't say at a breakneck pace, because I got to level 70 within like 3 or 4 days of just hardcore PvP all day and stuff like that, and really boost your levels because it has a level like matching system, which is awesome. So like the level 3 boars that you fight in Elwyn Forest, well, if you're level 20, they're level 20. If you're level 40, they're level 40. So everything, no matter where you go, is going to give you experience. And that's huge, especially if you're playing it for the story, because you don't have to worry about over-leveling, having to grind for fucking ever to just continue the story. You just play it and you just go. And that is awesome. And again, I'm taking everything out of World of Warcraft at this point because it's a separate game. It really is. It's a separate game from what you know. But it's a good separate game. And I understand why it's so popular and why I'm seeing so many ads for it, because it's a healthy game in population. All of the capital cities, it's chocked full of people. And I have no issues getting into dungeons and PvP matches. Like, they're practically instantaneous. Not so much for damage dealers, but as a healer or a tank, instantaneous. PvP though, instantaneous. Like, I just hit the join button and it's like, da-da, let's go to war, baby. So yeah, absolutely just a joy to play. And I have like, what is it, Vicious Gladiator gear. I mean, I already have like some of the best PvP armor in the game, and I didn't really have to try too hard. I didn't have to be a sweat to get it, you know. I am a casual player by all means. I mean, I'm in a fucking truck most of the time. So the fact that I could get to level 70 in like 3 or 4 days, mostly on my 2 days off that I had, and enjoy the content of the game and just play it like I feel like it's supposed to be played, man, awesome stuff. If you have not played Ascension Warcraft, I normally don't push games on people, but if you have ever been a fan of World of Warcraft, ever, at least give it a shot. At least look into it. Because I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice, because then you actually have some ammunition to talk about World of Warcraft. So let's start with like the history of my playing with World of Warcraft, and then I'm going to get into what WoW has done wrong and some things that it's done right and what it should be doing. So obviously, I'm an OG player. Started when it first came out and they sold the fucking game time cards in a Walmart and all that stuff, which maybe they do that still. I don't fucking know. But I played the shit out of it growing up in school. I mean, that was one of the things like you bragged about, like, hey, yeah, I got a level 55 Night Elf Rogue. What do you have? A 60 Paladin. That's pretty cool. Whatever. Like, you know, we bragged about that stuff as kids in the classroom and stuff, along with our Pokemon cards, you know, or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, whatever. Those were the days, right? Let's go ahead and just, oh yeah, reminisce about the good times. Ooh. So yes, vanilla Warcraft, World of Warcraft was great. Of course, most of us also came from the games of Warcraft, which was like Warcraft through Warcraft 3, which pretty much played vanilla WoW all the way to Wrath of the Lich King. Okay? So this is why, in my personal opinion, Wrath of the Lich King was the last and greatest expansion of all time. So, as far as vanilla WoW is concerned, I haven't much to say about it because it's the first iteration of the game. It's a lore-setting type of MMO, which drove heavily upon story and context and really, truly building your character and learning from your mistakes and becoming an all-powerful hero. You were never the chosen one, which was cool. Because that, to me, brought the community together. This is why World of Warcraft was just so fucking massive it has continued to be, because it doesn't do the stupid, oh, you're the chosen one trope. It doesn't do that. It's literally just you with your friends and family against the world of Warcraft. So Vanilla WoW, I have nothing to say about it. Who cares how it was, because that's how it was. It wouldn't have been as popular of a game if it wasn't the way it was. The first expansion was Burning Crusade, and I don't have much to say about that one either, because it's the first expansion, so everything's new. I mean, we got a huge fucking map that's practically as big as Azeroth itself. I don't know what the ratio is, but we don't need to worry about that. The context is a massive expansion with 2 new races and all sorts of other things and stuff that I say would be just, it was just awesome. It just made it even better. And of course, it introduced the flying mounts. And so you could fly around the world for the very first time. It was just something awesome. I guess this comes into my first criticism with Burning Crusade, which is, I think it was really a dumb idea to not include flying in Azeroth, and you could only fly in the Outlands. That never made sense. Still doesn't to this day. To why I think it's a critical criticism of the game. It should have included flying in all of Azeroth. Like, I don't understand why they made it just for the Outlands. And of course, you can give me a comment saying, well, this is the reason why they did it. It's not going to be a good enough reason, because they clearly had the coding and the idea. I mean, Azeroth was already there. It was already generated. All you had to do was just let people fly through it. Like, it's not a problem. So, that was my only criticism of Burning Crusade. Everything else, fucking fantastic. Now, I don't know if the Dungeon Finder was introduced at this time, but I know it was in Wrath of the Lich King. And Wrath of the Lich King is where I'm going to probably talk about some more criticisms, but at the same time, I said that Wrath of the Lich King was most certainly one of the best and greatest expansions of all of Warcraft history. From what this is for me, right? Okay? I didn't play all the expansions, so I cannot be a critical analyzer of those expansions because I never played them. But Wrath of the Lich King was awesome because it brought Warcraft 3 to essentially the pinnacle. We got to play with the Lich King and all that stuff and go to Northrend and all these things. And then, of course, we got introduced to the Death Knight class. And the Death Knight class is not only wonderful and awesome, but it has one of my criticisms with it. So, I like the fact that they made you work to get this class. So you had to have a character of at least level 55, I believe, maybe 60, in order to unlock the Death Knight. What I don't agree with is that you had, once you unlocked the Death Knight, you had to create a whole ass new character in order to play it. That's stupid. You should have been able, once you maybe reached a point in Northrend, to actually unlock this class. Not only did you have to be a specific level, which maybe you could raise the level up by me saying this, so it shouldn't have been just 55 or 60. You should be at a higher level, because by the time that you went to Northrend, you're like, what, level 70 to 80 or something like that, right? Well, that should have been part of end game content or mid game content when you are like actually fighting the Lich King forces, or maybe you can choose a side to work with the Lich King or something. Nonetheless, there should have been a quest line that was given to you to accept to go down the path of the Death Knight. And it would unlock not only any character that you create thereon forward, you can create them as a Death Knight and they will start at level 55 or whatever, but your main character can become a Death Knight and can swap between the two classes. It just makes sense, right? Like, I don't understand how that was so fucking hard to do. But I also understand that at this point in time, World of Warcraft is a monster, so why would they do anything like that? Like, that's just kind of how their game is always played. I mean, we're only 2 expansions in, so I wouldn't really truly expect them to go down this pathway, but at the same time, I feel like it should have been talked about or thought of. I mean, this is kind of almost a no-brainer in my opinion. Like, you should have been able to become a Death Knight for your main character. Nonetheless, and that's just one of my criticisms about, you know, the new classes and stuff like that. Like, there should be a quest line, and specialized classes should be something that your main character or any other character on your server and whatnot should be able to become if they want to go down the quest line, or you can just create a new character and make them a Death Knight or whatever have you. The other thing is, I believe even in Wrath of the Lich King, you still couldn't fly around all of Azeroth. You had to get the icy wing thing, and then you could fly around Northrend and the Outlands, but you still couldn't fly in Azeroth. I could be wrong. It's been a fucking minute since I played Wrath of the Lich King. So I'll make sure to put that information, if I am correct or wrong, whatever way, on here, so you know exactly when you could actually fly in all of Azeroth. But see, this still would have worked, because if it was allowed in Burning Crusade, and you could fly around Azeroth and the Outlands in Burning Crusade, then getting that frozen wing thing that you had to earn in Northrend in order to fly in Northrend still would have made sense. It wouldn't have been something that's like, I can't believe I can't fly in Northrend. I was allowed to fly in Stormwind and Orgrimmar or wherever, but, man, why can't I fly in Northrend? Well, because of the icy wind and all that bullshit, you know, whatever story they want to give you. I mean, obviously, it's just busy work. That's all it is. It's just busy work. But nonetheless, they could have done that. That would have made a lot of logical sense, and it still would have fit for everything they wanted to do in Wrath of the Lich King. Alright, so the flying still was a little bit of a gripe. The class system that they were developing was a little bit of a gripe. Other than that, though, still a solid story. Still good stuff. Obviously, at this time, we had the Dungeon Finder. I know we had Dungeon Finder at this point in time. Now, coming from an experienced player at this point who has played vanilla World of Warcraft to Wrath of the Lich King, this would have went over your head, as it did mine. Because if I think about it, obviously, I played the entire story up until this point. I played vanilla WoW. I played Burning Crusade and Illidan and all that stuff. And now I'm playing against Arthas and the Lich King and things. And I've done all of those storylines. But you have to think about something. If you are a brand new player that has never played World of Warcraft before, and you jump in with the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, and you get to, I'm just going to assume, I don't know what the level was for bare minimum requirement for random dungeons, but let's just say level 10, which is fairly early in the game, you can just do random Dungeon Finder and continue to level up and level up and level up and level up without ever touching the story ever again. And I think that was a huge disservice to the game. I don't really know of any other game that does that, where you can just jump in and go. Like, I'm thinking about Final Fantasy XIV. You don't have access to that stuff. You have to play storyline quests that introduce you to all this stuff. And you also have to pass main story, not only these side missions and stuff, but you have to pass the main story along with level requirements in order to even get access to these dungeons and things in Final Fantasy XIV, which is fantastic because it gives relevance to the lore and the story and all this building with the game. So Final Fantasy XIV absolutely nailed it on the head on storytelling and making every bit of their game that you play relevant to your character, even if it is a chosen one trope. But with World of Warcraft, you don't get that. You don't have to do anything special to unlock the dungeons anymore. You don't have to do a quest line for any of that bullshit. You just hit the little green eyeball and hit go. And you find yourself as a new player experiencing for the very first time of, what the fuck is this? What the fuck does it have anything to do with anything? And why am I doing this? Who are these people? What are those monsters? And I guess I'm just here to fuck shit up and go home. So World of Warcraft, I would say at a very early stage, tried to make itself just a dungeon crawling game, but they should have set that up to begin with. If World of Warcraft and Blizzard at large wanted to do this to their game, they should have done this to start with. Instead of making a loreful storytelling type of game where your character is invested in the world and you find your place in the world, you're not a chosen one, you're part of a team and a community. You are either part of the Horde or the Alliance. And you have this turmoil of war, and now you have the Burning Crusade and the Legion to worry about. All this stuff, which is rich in context and lore. This is how World of Warcraft presented itself. And then to just take that away, just, you're gone. You're out of here. Get out of here. What's wrong with you? Take me a sip. I have to talk loud in the truck because fucking engine. Ah, that's better. So it just, it just takes it out of the game in favor of just doing stuff faster. And that's okay. But now you're giving people a completely new way of viewing World of Warcraft. And so you're kind of slapping in the face the people who cared about that lore and story, and then people who will never know that story. It's kind of like Destiny 2, where Destiny 2 just took out a bunch of content and said, whatever. So brand new players to your game will never, ever, ever fully experience the content that you created for it. And World of Warcraft has done that to itself. So now we get into Cataclysm. Cataclysm was fine as far as it still continued the whole gameplay trope that we had experienced in Wrath of the Lich King. However, the thing that perturbed me the most was the complete alteration of the world. I don't agree with that. That made me mad. Because by this point in time, it's been some years that World of Warcraft has been out, and now we have Deathwing and his bitch ass just destroying and altering everything that you grew up with, and you don't have a choice. It just happens. Now things look completely different. And here's the thing. I cared about it, but that's just personally me, because I like to play the story and stuff. And of course, I've played the story all the way up until this point. And when I visited these old places that I remember questing in, and they look nothing, and sometimes even worse than what I remember them, I'm just like, this is stupid. Like, why did you do this to the world? But keeping in context that there's just so many rotating doors of customers and players and people that just don't give a shit because, well, they're not going to care about how the world looks anymore. So it's almost pointless, in my opinion, to even do it in the first place, but let's just continue. All they want to do is just dungeon grind because that's the game now. It's just a dungeon grinder. A raid battler. A PvP fucker, because I know, don't do fucking PvP. PvP got ruined by the time Burning Crusade came out. So let's just be real on that one. Alright, we can talk about PvP real quick, because I had an okay experience in vanilla WoW PvP. But of course, those that know, because if you're old enough, you're going to know, that Twinks were like the thing. And we called them Twinks because they would have some of the, they'd have a main character that was making all this money, and then they could go and just buy the best gear off of the auction house and stuff that's worth hundreds of gold that a normal casual player would never fucking dream of getting until many, many months down the road, and just completely destroy everybody on the battlefield. Yes, those people existed, but they were kind of far and few between. They did, of course, as the game progressed and was out longer, obviously the battlefield became saturated with Twinks and those that had the best gear, and then that's what happened. PvP basically stood for, essentially, you need to have the best of the best gear. You need to be within the meta in order to stand even a fucking chance, because then by that point in time, it was just about skill and not fucking up your rotation and you just dominating on the battlefield. And it didn't matter if it was in a casual sense or in the arena. And so I ditched PvP right after Burning Crusade, because it just didn't make sense. So that's PvP in a nutshell, right? World of Warcraft ruined PvP. No one does it except for the sweats, and so power to you. Go do your shit. But Cataclysm just kind of continued everything. It changed the whole ass world. I didn't agree with that. But ultimately, it was relatively the same game, and I enjoyed myself. Mists of Pandaria. Fuck that shit. That is the expansion that made me quit World of Warcraft. By this point in time, I'm an adult. I got shit to do, and I'm expecting to kind of just do my own same thing, as I always have, and have truly a customizable character, and just keep going down this whole dungeon thing. I would run a dungeon or a raid every now and then. That was my life, right? Well, Mists of Pandaria decided to say, well, everything that you knew and loved about the gameplay, fuck that. See, bye-bye, talent trees. Fuck your talent tree. Oh, you want to be a healer? Well, just click this button, and automatically you're going to have everything you need to be a healer. Oh, you want to be a damage dealer? Click this button, and you'll be a damage dealer. No problem. You don't have to worry about those pesky little talents and all that shit. We'll just do it for you. And I'm like, what kind of Care Bear bullshit is this? Like, you just took one of the main components of character creation out of the fucking game. Like, what's wrong with you? Why would you do that? I mean, I understand it in my later years, as of right now, going back on it, I could say, well, maybe for a business sense, it made sense because they wanted to be as inclusive as they could for new players. That way they're not taxied with learning all this stuff, because, we're 4 or 5 expansions in. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of content and a lot of things to get through, and I don't think people have the time as they did before to really spend on this game. So, what? I understand that. But you pretty much just bitch slapped every fucking old player of the game that loves the talent trees and figuring out what the best builds are, creating a meta or a new meta, and this and that and the other thing. And that's why it was so loved, because it was kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons thing, but just way better lore, cool graphics, and of course, as far as MMOs are concerned, even the newest MMOs that came out, we just called them WoW clones. Oh, you're just another WoW clone. You're fucking nothing, bro. You ain't shit. But as far as just that drastic of a gameplay change from the norm, that was too fast, too quick, too much. And so at that point, I was already kind of waning in my existence with World of Warcraft, and that was just the final nail in the coffin for me. I said, fuck this shit, I don't care about this anymore. And I stopped playing it. And I stopped playing it for the longest time. And the only time I picked up World of Warcraft was when I heard about WoW Classic. And of course, this is many years later. And I was intrigued to learn about WoW Classic, and that was actually what I was only cared about, because I wanted to live that nostalgia of back in the day when World of Warcraft was really good. Now, granted, they didn't have any of the expansions attached to it, like Burning Crusade, and I think now they have Wrath of the Lich King attached to it, which is great. But I did sign back up on subscription, and I got WoW Classic, but when I played it, by this point in time, you know, technology and games and everything else have just expanded and exploded so much that really this was a shitty experience. Like, man, I can't believe this was fucking fun for us. This is just whatever. It wasn't really even a nostalgia run for me. It was more so just a realization of how grown up I've become, along with the games around me. And my expectations for those games have completely outweighed this nostalgia factor for Classic WoW. Yes, of course, people absolutely love it, as they should, and I respect it, as I should, but I just can't get into it because I'm just like, I've done this before. Like I said, I'm an OG guy. Like, I've already played this entire fucking game inside and out, put thousands of hours into vanilla Warcraft, and you could say I graduated, you know, I graduated from that. I don't need to play this anymore, and that was really the, I guess you could say, realization moment that was a true thing to say. So, I didn't have any interest. But now, you know, the subscription, I could do retail or WoW Classic. They're not separate. So I decided to see what the fuck was up with retail at that point in time. And I believe at that point in time it was Warlords of Draenor. I believe. I don't think it was Shadowlands yet, but I didn't really give two shits, nor did I pay attention. But nonetheless, so I get into this game, and the first thing it does is tosses me on an airship. And here we are with Battle for Azeroth, and I'm like, the fuck is this? Like, what's happening? Where am I? What's going on? I thought the Horde and the Alliance got back together. Why are we fighting each other again? What's going on? Oh my god! Like, it's just like this blast of just, what the fuckery? And apparently, like, this was like Blizzard's way of giving you a tutorial of the game, and you're like, was a tutorial ever fucking necessary? Like, I never really thought about having a tutorial. I thought the tutorial was when you went to your beginning zone and you learned the fucking game through a slow progression line, that eventually you got to grab dungeons and then you just fucking sprint to the end. You kind of learned a little bit of the lore and the story, but hey, we all understand that Warcraft is done with that shit, right? So they just toss you into a random expansion that you've never experienced before to give you a tutorial, and then after you're done with this crazy, stupid, fucking way too long thing that's overwhelming, you have no fucking idea who's who, why this even matters, and then you just get tossed into the game with whatever expansion you have, and you're just standing there at either the gates of Stormwind or the gates of Orgrimmar, and you're just like, huh. So what do I do from here? Oh yeah, click the dungeon finder. Let's go. That's it. And that's exactly how people play the game. They just click the dungeon finder and away they go. They don't care about anything else. And then through just sheer fucking discovery, I discovered some sort of time portal thing that would allow you to go back to a previous expansion and experience that, and I'm just like, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I get to go back to, I think it went all the way back to Cataclysm, which essentially was about where I stopped anyways, except for, you know, Mist of Pandaria, which I didn't play, but nonetheless, I'm like, oh, that's cool, well, let's go back to Cataclysm. So I did just that. I went back to Cataclysm or something like that. I don't know exactly what expansion it went back to, but I went as far back as I could, because I needed to refresh myself. I wanted to play the story. I wanted to find out what the fuck happened and why we have Battle for Azeroth and all these other 3 fucking expansions. I understand the Burning Legion came back. Well, I want to know more about that. So, but before I know about that, I need to know what happened to this, and before I know what happened to this, I need to know what happened. Like, it was just crazy to me. And then you do the expansion, which of course you out fucking level, you outpace, you get done with it stupid early, and then it just sends you back to present time, and you're just like, well, I'm ready for my next expansion. But then it, like, for some reason, it wouldn't let you do it. It didn't let you go back even further or anything like that. It just like shuts you off completely. And so now you're stuck in the most recent, I guess you could call expansion. I would say universe or verse or whatever. But so now you're in the most recent content, and all I'm doing is pressing the dungeon finder because I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go. It's not like anybody is telling me to do anything. Yeah, there's some like quest starters, but like they're for some other content and this and that. There is no direct storyline involved when you create a new character. You just get the fuck in, you get some levels just to get to the dungeon finder, and then you're done. It's over with. Game over, man. Game over. And it was overwhelming, frustrating, made 0 sense. Just like, this is way different than the World of Warcraft that I used to know. And I didn't like it at all. I couldn't function. I was going into the dungeons and I'm like, oh, this is a cool dungeon. Wonder what this whole vampire thing's all about and all this and that and the other thing. And now I'm introduced to this whole resource management table and I gotta manage resources and put forces over here and just absolutely fucking sideswiped with mechanics that to me don't mean fucking anything. Like there hasn't been any world building. There hasn't been anything that's like, hey, here's the new content of the game. If you want to start the story quest for this and find out what to do, how to do it, yada yada yada, here you go. But if that does exist, I never found it. It wasn't like it was handed to me. It's just what the fuck ever. Yeah, this is later me, right? It's getting a little dark outside, but I was watching all my video clips and I forgot to talk about, like, I had discovered in retail WoW the different races and having to find those races, and they had a viable quest line for them, and of course, you know, some of them had, I believe, nothing to do with the actual lore of the game, but who cares? And then, of course, the classes, like the Demon Hunter class. I was like, oh, fuck, man, I get to be part of Illidan's army? Like, this is fucking lit, bro. And so, yeah, of course I created a Demon Hunter. And then, you know, you go through the whole thing like I was mentioning, which is they teach you about your relic weapon that you're given, and then it levels up with you, and you have this resource management table and all this other horse shit that you just, like, has nothing to do with anything. And then you just find out and discover that everything you are doing is completely irrelevant. None of it has any bearing on the actual gameplay because this was like 2 or 3 expansions ago. We've moved past that. Like, whatever you're doing doesn't mean fucking dick shit because you're gonna need different gear anyways than the stupid little relic piece of crap that you got there in your midst. Like, that doesn't mean shit. So, like, they still have stuff in the game, like I said earlier, that has 0 relevancy. If it's going to make something obsolete, then either remove it from the game or find a way to make it viable as some sort of player's choice. Like, you can't just give me a relic weapon as a Demon Hunter and teach me this whole fucking 9 yards of bullshit and then just say, oh, well, it actually doesn't matter. I don't know why we gave that to you. You know, go fuck off. I mean, the Demon Hunter is a cool class to play, but again, you know, just wanted to give myself a little interjection, so you're going to see a weird cut. So after some time of enjoying the dungeons and stuff, I mean, I just kind of got bored because, well, I wasn't part of a guild. I didn't really give 2 shits, and I really couldn't justify the $14.95 a month to pay for this, along with all the rest of the MMOs that are out. Like, now I have viable choices. Now I have plenty of things, up into, of course, including Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, and the myriad of other shit that's out there. Hell, I had WildStar going at one point, but nonetheless, just saying, there's so much more character and other games to explore than World of Warcraft that it wasn't giving me any fucking reason to be a part of it. None whatsoever. And of course the cash shop and all of its bullshit, and it's just like, you know, I think they are correct with the whole pay-to-win thing, because I'm like, well, it's just cosmetics and mounts, but in the reality, the fact that you can buy WoW tokens and then just convert that to gold, most certainly is pay-to-win. Absolutely, because now you can just buy whatever fucking shit you want in the game, and then be as powerful as you want because you got money, baby. You got money. So we have the cash shop that essentially gives any wallet warrior the means to do whatever they want in the game and be as powerful as they want in the game, along with, you know, cool mounts that you can only get on the cash shop, of which then you can just rub that in people's faces, like, look how much money I spent. Yeah, I spent like $800 at World of Warcraft. It's so good. Look at my cool ass mounts. And hey, you know what? I like throwing some balls in people's faces too. You know, it's fun. It's whatever. It's nice to flash a little cash every now and then. But, you know, that it's just more toxicity is all it is. Because then you got people saying, well, you're nothing because you can't afford this. You know, when you bring those type of properties and stuff into a game, you definitely lose focus on what it should be. A fucking game where everybody can be together and go into these raids and things. And from what I understand and heard, like, raids are almost kind of like a whatever. I don't know. I literally don't know about really the current means of the game. What I do know from what I have heard is that Dragonflight was a pretty good adventure. But I do watch Asmongold a lot, and you know, I have to agree with him. Like, it's not gritty, it's not grungy, it's not anything. It just looks like a furry fantasy, of which, whatever, you know, to each their own. And it's just like, it's kind of like just a kiddie game. It's just like, oh, I jump in here and look, I'm having fun at My Little Pony Island Adventure. Whatever. And maybe that's just the adult in me, because again, you know, at 2004, I was 14 years old, and now I'm almost, goddamn, I'm almost 34 years old. So yeah, there's things that appeal to me now that maybe, just maybe, World of Warcraft hasn't really changed that much, although it has, and it just simply does not grab me by the man testicles and drags me back in, saying this is the most manly fucking thing you could have ever fucking played in your entire fucking life. I got Helldivers 2 for that, of which hopefully they I don't know about Helldivers 2, as far as I will always continue to play it until it becomes unplayable or the new CEO fixes I don't know. Well, that's a different video for a different day. But to end things off, let's get back to Ascension Warcraft and why retail WoW needs to get on the ball with what Ascension is doing. Ascension, they need to come out with an expansion, a new World of Warcraft expansion called Ascension. And what it basically does is it gives everyone a classless system. You don't have to have so many fucking characters as you probably do now on hundreds, who knows, like, just narrow down the focus, put it in scope, right? That this is what you need to focus on, and your character can be whatever it wants to be. If it wants like a badass, you know, just gank tank heal, you know, damage dealer that when it fucking cuts into you, it gives you health back and stuff, like some sort of vampire, like beat 'em up build, you can do that. Like, you can do that. That's so good. Like, there is so many abilities and things in the game that it's a modder's paradise. I would have to say World of Warcraft, up and with other games, is probably the most modded MMO out there. And when it's modded in a good way, then you get Ascension Warcraft. And, I mean, Blizzard just needs to eat them all up, be like, oh yeah, come on over here. You're now all Blizzard employees. You're going to be in charge of making sure that Ascension Warcraft gets put into retail WoW and introduce the best thing to ever happen to World of Warcraft. And like I said, or maybe I hadn't said it yet, but it would bring me back, because I can forget all about the lore. I can forget about everything, because now I would understand, like, Ascension has taught me is that World of Warcraft, so long as it's put into the context, and I can just bar out of my head that World of Warcraft is just dead as far as its story and lore and whatever else, and that it is just a dungeon grind fest with really good PvP and other stuff, that I would most certainly be a part of that. I would pay $14.95 a month to play Ascension Warcraft on a retail official server, because it would just be epic. So let's recap on the epicness of Ascension. Classless system. I can do whatever I want, use any and all abilities that I want to. Fast leveling, because guess what? We ain't got fucking time. We're burning. Let's get to fucking level whatever and get the fuck going. Like, we got shit to do. And then make gold a little easier to obtain, so that way we don't have to really worry about the whales in the cash shop, because someone who does a little bit of extra work will just get the gold that they need to afford the good stuff, like the wallet warriors will. The wallet warriors will just essentially just have stuff a little sooner. That's all it is. So it will go from a mega pay to play or pay to win to a still pay to win. I don't think it's ever going away from any fucking MMO. It just is what it is. And then you have awesome revamped systems and mounts, and you can fly wherever. You can enjoy Northrend and Outlands, and maybe, I don't know, like maybe this would be like the soft reset that World of Warcraft needs to then bring in a storyline that everybody can follow. That I hate to say this, because it's already been through so many fucking expansions. You'd think, other than Battle for Azeroth, that you would throw the players a fucking bone and go back to the beginning. And here's the problem with expansions in general, right? They just make you forget about old content. And unless you are there from the beginning until the very now, you are going to be so lost. And with so many expansions, it's almost hard to make the leveling system make sense to be able to play all of those stories. And I'm not saying that having a ton of expansions is a bad thing, but when they critically put any and all other previous expansions basically out of commission, obviously it's not healthy. It's not healthy for the retention of older consumers, and it's not healthy for anybody who comes in at midway or has been off and on. I don't know how you could actually figure that out, other than which I think, if I am to recall correctly, World of Warcraft went up to level 200 at one point in time, which to me is fucking ridiculous. But they obviously brought the level back down, which of course means that you're going to hit that max level before you can even touch any of the other content. And of course you got the fucking power tokens, right, where you just automatically go to level 70 or level 80 or whatever and just fuck off and do whatever, and you get the gear to at least start the dungeons. I mean, that needs to be there, because again, there's people that just want to play the game to play the dungeons and stuff. They don't care about any of the story, so that's fine that it's there. But the fact that it is there means that pretty much your expansions are irrelevant. The stories are irrelevant, the lore is irrelevant. And really what I'm trying to do right now is just process in my head to how you can make everything relevant. And it's the only answer is to bring Ascension World of Warcraft in to do a soft reset of the game in its entirety, or stop making fucking expansions and come out with World of Warcraft 2, which would have the Ascension mechanics, and do a completely new storyline that has nothing to do with the old game. Maybe some some recalling to the past, recalling to old World of Warcraft or whatever, and have the Ascension mechanics and all that shit, and then go forward from there. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's either an expansion that soft resets, or it's a whole new game. And I think everybody would agree that World of Warcraft has milked way too much. I mean, it's been around for 20 years. I don't know what the longevity of an MMO is, but it's really not that long. And so, other than EVE Online and a few other MMOs, they haven't even been around that long as World of Warcraft has. And I think that might be what its problem is it has too many consumers that doesn't allow it to die. It doesn't allow it to wean itself off, like, get off the fucking WoW tit. Like, quit sucking it, get off the fucking WoW tit. Let them develop something else, so that way they can stop doing expansions, they can stop fucking with everything, and creating an atmosphere of chaos and confusion and discontent because nobody knows what's going on, and create something new and fresh. Because even by graphic standards with World of Warcraft, it's pretty fucking low. Alright, the graphics really have not improved drastically over the years. You could look at any other game and be like, okay, well this is from like 2010 or 2015, or this is 2020 or whatever. When I look at World of Warcraft, I still see like mid-2000s graphics. Like, there's nothing there that's like, oh man, this is just so fucking gorgeous and pretty. It's because they haven't allowed the game to either die off enough or to create an expansion that just does an overhaul of the graphics of the game. Now, I do understand that they have to make sure that even the kids in China and India and Africa and wherever else that doesn't have the technological powerhouse that the US does and other regions of the world to be able to play World of Warcraft. So you can't go too crazy, but by this point in history, there are plenty of, I would say, low-end graphics cards systems that can most certainly power through a really good graphical update. Maybe not Unreal Engine 5, but I would say Unreal 4 at this point in time is most certainly viable for the world. I can't really see any context where you're going to be outing so many people by going to an Unreal Engine 4 for World of Warcraft. I really don't. And also, here's the thing, this is the perfect essence to why you need to create a brand new World of Warcraft, because you can have normal WoW with retail and classic off on one side, and then you can have WoW 2 or something else. Maybe it doesn't have to necessarily be called World of Warcraft, but something else that's very much like it, but using Unreal Engine 4 or Unreal Engine 5 to be up with the times. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do with World of Warcraft, and I just had to rant about it because after experiencing Ascension, it just amazes me that there's this much love and care for World of Warcraft, and people clearly want it steered in a certain direction. And obviously a lot of the community probably is just absolutely ignorant to Ascension and other private servers and what they do. But in order for WoW to grow in the right way, although it's almost saying like, oh, Pokemon's gotta be different. You're practically, throwing a rock at a giant brick wall, right? Like, it's not gonna do anything. But I just think there needs to be either a whole new entire game, or things need to change, or a soft reset, if you will. And that would bring even more people into World of Warcraft. and to enjoy to enjoy the game that really started the MMO craze. It definitely deserves to live on, but it needs to change in the right ways. And whatever they're doing with this whole expansion shit, whatnot, it means nothing. It means nothing to me. And I'm sure it means nothing to a lot of people. Because yes, they may have 10 million, 16 million, maybe even 20 million active accounts or whatever, but they could have 30. They could have 40. Hell, they could have a fucking 100 million accounts, right? I mean, there's 8 billion people in the world. You can't tell me that 100 million people couldn't play World of Warcraft if it hit all of the right buttons. So yeah, there you go. There's my rant. There it is. I'm going to continue to play Ascension World of Warcraft. If you haven't played it, I'm going to put a link to the website below. Just try it out. Just try it. It's free. It doesn't do anything as far as just gives you maybe an insight to how I feel, and that maybe would revitalize your want to love WoW again, because it really has for myself, and I think you'd enjoy it as well. Keep on rocking, MMO people. Yeah.